Alright, Jacob, you have a really good start to your paper, but I do have a few suggestions for you to make it final copy ready. So first off, looking at some of the technical issues, in the upper left-hand corner, in order to properly format this for MLA, I'll be looking for your name, followed by my name, the name of the course, or ELA 3, and then the date that this paper is due. And the date that it's going to be due for everyone is October 20th, 2014. That should be formatted as 20 in numerical, October spelled out, and then a numerical 2014. You'll also put your last name in the upper right hand corner along with the page number on each page. So it'd be Cogley 1, Cogley 2, and so on through the rest of your paper. I'll also be looking for a title that provides both intrigue and insight as to what I'm going to be reading. So think about something that is sort of interesting, but it still deals with the plot of the novel or the fact that it's Moby Dick, something like that. Now, your first sentence in Herman Melville's novel Moby Dick, a 19th century whaler, is really good. The thing that I would add would be that I would like to see it start off in Herman Melville's novel Moby Dick. The author demonstrates, portrays some verb that is similar to that, the dark side of American romanticism, including, and then you would choose a couple of those options. So it might be evil and insanity. You may choose a fascination with the supernatural, exotic places, something to that effect. Then you could use this, a 19th century whaler by the name of Captain Ahab, in your next sentence to go on and summarize the plot of the novel. I do like your summarization. Other than that, though, I think it's really nice, and you have an interesting way of describing what the who, what, where, and when was. And then your thesis statement looks pretty good. So your next paragraph starts off fine. The diction used does portray Ahab as borderline insane. Your biggest issues are going to be that, first of all, you only have two examples. One up here with the tightly, almost convulsively grasping, and then as though not a soul were nigh him, resumed his heavy turns upon the deck. You are to have a minimum of 3 pieces of diction taken directly from the text, and I also need you to include the in-text citations after each one of those. The way that you'll do that is eliminating this period, having the quotation marks as you do already, adding in parentheses just the page number. You don't even need to put a P or a PG for page. You just put in the page number, which can then be followed by the period. You'll need to do that for each one of those, and of course add your third description, or your third in-text, your third textual example. Your transition here looks pretty good as far as the imagery. Again, I only see 2 examples being included. You have to have a minimum of 3. Again, the in-text citations need to be included. And each sentence, or there should never really be a sentence that starts with a part of a quote. So what I'd like for you to do is have some sentence variety, sometimes starting with the introduction or the explanation of the quote and then listing the quote. Other times having the quote maybe first, but with 1 or 2 introductory words and then explaining the quote, just to add some interest for the reader. Finally, I would like to see a little bit better transition for the third paragraph. You may say, in addition to imagery, or to diction and imagery, Melville also uses symbols throughout the story to indicate Ahab's mental state. Again, I need to see 3 specific examples with the in-text citations in order for that to meet the requirements of the paper. Let's see here. If we scroll down to summarize, you did, or you could put inclusion, I would put in conclusion actually. You did restate your thesis, that's good. You want to kind of restate what are the things that you talked about in the paper. So Melville portrays Ahab as insane along with his evil, or his feelings that Moby Dick is evil, which ultimately leads to the end of the story. And your final thought could be something along the lines of how Ahab did eventually die due to his obsession with the whale. I would leave this kind of borderline schizophrenic out because we don't actually know that, even though we do maybe see some of the signs that deal with that. Another technical thing I would say is you do need to remove the space after your paragraph. If you go into a Word document, you can just simply click on paragraph and go down to remove space after. You don't want to have these huge gaps. The double spacing is great, but this is too much. I will be looking for a works cited page as well. The works cited can be found in the example that I have posted up on D2L. If you have any questions or you need any more specific information, please do not hesitate to contact me, come see me. The paper isn't due until the 20th, so while you will be given work to complete in the same time as the final copy, you should have plenty of time. I'm definitely available to help you out if you have any questions. Enjoy your weekend, and I'll talk to you soon. Alright, Kennedy, I read through your rough draft, and I do think you have a good start, but I have some suggestions for you to make to the paper, the literary analysis, in order for it to be final copy ready. First off, let's look at some of the formatting and MLA issues. One of those is that all of your information is going to go in the left-hand corner as far as the MLA formatting goes. So what I would expect to see is right here, actually, to say Kennedy Dorrell, and then my name, and then you would put English Language Arts 3, and then finally end with the date that the paper is due, which is October 20th, 2014. So you should add in 20 in numbers, numerical numbers, October spelled out, and then 2014. You can go ahead and take your title and push it down a little bit, just so that it starts after all of this information in the upper left-hand corner. And I do want you to come up with something a little more interesting than just Moby Dick literary analysis, something that provides an intrigue and deals with the plot of the novel. In the upper right-hand corner, you're going to create a page number. The way the page number should look is your last name and page 1, and then your last name, page 2, and then throughout the end of the essay. So you should see a format that takes up quite a bit of space here on this left-hand side. You'll have your title about here, which means all this stuff's going to be pushed down. Now, the beginning of your essay, the opening sentence, is pretty good. You mentioned the title of the book, you mentioned the author, which is definitely one of those things, and you've included that instruction that I gave you about demonstrating the characteristics of the dark side. These do not need to be capitalized, of American Romanticism, including, but monstrous and mad are just not in the proper verb tense. So including the ideas of a monstrous or supernatural animal and madness would be what I would suggest for how you would fix that. Alright, then you give a pretty good brief summary of the novel, so not a whole lot of things I would change there. In fact, it looks to me as if everything's pretty much accurate in your description. And then finally, your thesis is almost exactly what I'm looking for. There's just a couple slight changes. What I would like to see is that you would say something like, throughout the novel, the author shows us that Captain Ahab believes the white whale Moby Dick is monstrous and evil through the use of diction, imagery, and symbolism. So we want to somehow mention the author, or Melville, one more time, because it's actually him who tells us how Captain Ahab feels about Moby Dick using these three types of literary elements. So something like I said, throughout the novel, Melville uses or shows the reader Captain Ahab's feeling that the white whale Moby Dick is evil and monstrous through his use of diction, imagery, and symbolism. Okay, for your very first paragraph, using the term Melville uses diction to tell us that Moby Dick is a vicious killing machine, I would again add something like through the eyes of Captain Ahab, because this almost makes it sound like Melville thinks Moby Dick is a vicious killing machine, when in reality he's trying to portray Ahab as feeling that way. Throughout this story, or throughout your essay, make sure that you avoid using any I, or us, or we, or you. We want to avoid first and second person and only use third person. So I will ask you to go through and get rid of all the us's and the we's and things like that. But going ahead and mentioning that he uses these descriptive words to explain that Ahab is saying or thinking is fine. Another thing that I've noticed is that you only have one example of textual evidence in each of your paragraphs, and the minimum for it is 3. So while he tasks, he heaps, and you see him, or I see him in outrageous strength and inscrutable malice sinewying in it, is perfectly fine. I need to see 2 more examples with explanations of how the diction relates back to Captain Ahab thinking that Moby Dick is evil. The other thing I noticed is that there are no in-text citations included in your rough draft. The way that you would add in-text citations is by eliminating the period here, just ending with a quote, and then parentheses, just putting the number of the page that you got it from. So you don't even need to put P or PG or anything like that. You would just put 285 or whichever page it came from. Those are pretty much the same issues in each of the paragraphs. You're missing your second and third example. You're missing in-text citations. I would look at your transitions to make sure that they're not all starting the exact same. Melville uses diction, Melville uses imagery, Melville uses symbolism. Think of another way. So maybe in addition to diction, the reader also sees various examples of imagery to show us that Moby Dick, or to show that Moby Dick is ruthless and doesn't stop for anything through the eyes of Captain Ahab. Where you're missing that point that it's not Moby Dick who's really evil, it's actually Ahab who's evil. And try not to put in these superfluous pieces of information, like we might not know what a heart-stricken moose sounds like, because the idea would be that the reader can infer that it's a groan without you telling us that we can infer that. As far as your conclusion goes, make sure that you restate your thesis. So up here in the top, where you first introduce your thesis, you mention the idea first before you mention the literary elements. So down here, you would maybe restate it by saying, through the use of diction, imagery, and symbolism, Melville is able to demonstrate to the reader that Captain Ahab believes Moby Dick is an evil being. Which you kind of have down here. Make sure that's your first sentence. You're going to restate the information you've said to us, the reader, through your paper, and finally end with a final thought. You may talk about how the revenge made Ahab go crazy, and the fact that it ultimately led to his death. If you have questions, please don't hesitate to contact me. Again, the paper's not due till the 20th, and while you will have some other assignments due at the same time, I am available for conferencing if you'd like to meet with me and talk to me about your paper in person. All right, have a great weekend, and I will talk to you soon.